How's it going there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday. It is the Earthmaster out here. About 11:16 p.m. A.m. here in the morning, California time, May 26, 2024. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 2.6 in Hawaii and also a 4.3 over here across the area just outside the Himalaya region. First, want to cover the sun, and if you guys remember here, back about the 5th or 6th here of this month, when we've seen all the aurora events, large CMEs blasted off at us, and numerous X-flares. Well, this was the source here. This was the visible disk imagery of that sunspot, 3664, and I want to put this into motion and show you guys that it did come back around the bend. It was just starting to come back around the bend again from the eastern limb. So this sunspot's going to head off here to the western limb. This is the Earth-facing side. This is the far side. We'll see the sunspot just clip over here in a second. I'll show you guys. Look at that super complex sunspot. That, you know, I'm thinking that was close to being a Carrington event, but just barely missed that level. And as you can see that clipping the western limb over here, it now appears over here on the far side of the sun. This was that sunspot. We'll put this into motion, and you'll see that it's still remaining quite active, at least in terms of the size of that sunspot. Here it is right here. Notice it goes through a little bit of phases, but it still looks like a decent sunspot here, and it's just about ready. It actually looks like it grew here in the last couple days or so. So we'll get a little bit better glimpse of this sunspot within the next probably 36 hours or so. We're not really seeing too much activity from it, which is way over here. Just barely seeing some of the magnetic arches and the plasma from that sunspot. So it's got a little ways to go. But we'll probably get a glance of this maybe sometime tomorrow night. The imagery here in terms of magnetic structure, obviously we're not going to be able to see it because it's still way out here on the far side of the sun. But just getting ready here, it looks like, to clip the area as far as the viewing side, the eastern edge here of the sun. So what do we have to deal with right now? Not a whole lot of anything noteworthy. I mean, obviously there is quite a few sunspot areas out here, but they are relatively stable. This one up here was looking a little bit more active last night. Not so much today, but we'll continue to keep an eye on it. These sunspots evolve, they grow, they decay. Many of these sunspots that we're seeing have been around the sun multiple times on the Earth-facing side and the far side. They just get renamed once they're back here on the visible disk. So 3664, the culprit of all that aurora activity recently, will be renamed to something else once it comes back here into view. But we don't have a whole lot there on the interesting side in terms of flaring. In fact, the flaring threat has gone down. About 5% chance for an X flare, M flare at 40, C flare around 99% chance or so. And not a whole lot of aurora forecast for now. But hopefully we can get that to change. We'll see. It does look like it's still active out there on the southeastern limb. Maybe it looks like in this image there's a little, you could just barely see the portion of that sunspot. It still looks quite active out there, but that's just in the upper areas of that sunspot. But we'll definitely get a better view here in the hours ahead, 24 hours or so. All right, earthquake activity. A handful of quakes up here off the Oregon coast. Some threes kicking off out here and a couple twos subsequently following this activity here. Of course, there's fracture zones right here and a divergent zone, which is the separations of the seafloor spreading center. We'll say that 100 times, or don't even have to be 100 times. Could be 10 times. As you can see, the oceanic crust forming over time, creating these ridges. Now, when that takes place, obviously it does add further strain out here across the southern branch of the San Andreas, of the Cascadia subduction zone. Let me grab my coffee. Goodness. I didn't sleep too well last night. I'm not for sure why, but Just been one of those things. So we did see a little bit of uptick here in earthquake activity following this movement this morning, which is expected because of the direction that the migration of that pressure heads towards here on the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. So a couple smaller quakes occurring there. We'll continue to keep an eye here on Northern California and, of course, the southern end of the Cascadia, which is known to produce some partial ruptures out here. Now, the Cascadia can either create a full rupture, the entire length of the Cascadia subduction zone, which would result in a 9.0 or greater earthquake out here. In fact, the last one was back in 1700, 324 years ago. The second scenario is that this could produce a partial rupture, which could be upwards of around an 8.5 or so. I think 8.4, 8.5. Which would extend just here to Northern California and northward slightly, but roughly about here, I believe. So that leads me to believe that there's more strain accumulating due to this spreading seafloor center than up here. We've covered this a lot. Obviously, there's strain building out here across the entire area, but it seems as though in between these large ruptures, full ruptures, we get these periodic partial ruptures, which is, in 8.5 or so. And I'm leaning because more so of the activity that's taken place right here with the earthquake movement and the spreading seafloor center that adds further strain down here across this area compared to the full activity up here, which extends more over time. So I'm thinking, if anything, 324 years is a long time, but I'm leaning more towards a partial rupture out here that we should be seeing soon. The intervals, they happen between 300 to 500 years on the full rupture, and a partial rupture could happen anytime in between then. But we've covered this numerous times. Got tons of videos here on the channel and on YouTube that explain this a little bit more in detail. Far as Southern California goes, pretty quiet. Really not seeing anything major going on here. Of course, just a ticking time bomb, so to speak, out here in terms of the plate stress that's accumulated here in this area of Southern California. This, been over 300 years as well since the last full rupture of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. I wonder if those go hand in hand, right? Maybe one triggers the other. You just never know. It's possible. You just never know. A lot of time has passed, though. Texas, some movement going on out in the oil fields, a little bit in Oklahoma, and also out into the Arkansas area, north of Mountain Home. Looks like a 2.1. This area, goodness, seen a lot of tornado activity last night. Devastating tornadoes. We'll get to that here at the end of this update. One little earthquake up into Montana, 1.9 near Raidersburg. Beautiful countryside up here in Montana. Absolutely love it. I got to get back up there. Just traveling these roads up here are a huge stress relief. A lot of people don't like the mountains and wildlife, but being up here, enjoying the scenery and nature is just a huge stress relief. Similar to what you would experience out, on the ocean out here, away from the large crowds of people. The ocean is a big-time stress reliever. All right, Kansas. How'd you get way up here? Alaska, a little bit of spotty activity today, but not anything out of the normal. Most of the activity today, it looks like it's been confined across this area of the world, with a couple 4 stirring up. Following that 6.3 yesterday, of course, we did see some movement stirring back up here across the Tonga region. Nothing overnight in the Tonga area. Most of the movement has been confined into, some deeper areas here around the Philippines, the Mariana Islands area up north, and a little bit of subsequent shallow adjustment spread out all over the place here. So that 6.3 did stir up and add further pressure out here, specifically in this region. Got to continue to watch it because we are seeing more deeper earthquake than we are surface adjustment. So that could be a sign here soon of some impending larger quake activity. The question is where, right? Up here along the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, things pretty quiet here for now. This is obviously a primed area. I've been saying it for quite a while here in terms of megaquake potential. Taiwan pretty quiet. Just got to watch it. We'll see how it plays out in the coming days. Hawaii is still seeing some activity out here, leading off towards the Loihi Seamount in a linear fashion, although just to the west it looks like. This is still a little bit puzzling as to what is going to take place here, because we are still looking at an elevated inflation there across the Kilauea volcano. Let's double check, see if they put out the update yet today. They have it. This is from yesterday. So the inflation, let me show you guys the deformation data. Hello, there we go. It's starting to go down. I did mention this last night that there was a couple different scenarios that we could see this maybe continue up, or we would see it go down, but it looks like it is following that stair-stepping trend event. But this level is still at its highest level seen since 2018. And that goes past, back out of here. That goes past the displacement that took place back in February. Remember, we were doing that stair-stepping event all the way up until February. Then we seen that huge displacement of magma from the summit off to the southwest rift zone and further. I believe it's much further down there. Because it elevated the southwest rift zone and then just kind of went off further to the east towards like the Loihi Seamount. So now we've been coming back up. Excuse me. And there, as you can see it here, we're at its highest level here in the last year. In the last 5 years, and if you were to go back last 10 years, you'll see that this level is the highest level since the 2018 eruption there that happened off on the East Rift Zone that created some beautiful but also damaging eruptive fissures there at the surface levels. Damaged quite a bit of homes and road networks there off onto the eastern side of the volcano area. It's pretty crazy. So uncertain on if we're going to see another displacement from the summit off here to the southwest rift zone, because when we've seen that displacement take place, this obviously deflated big time. This area inflated and then deflated, and then down here you could see a trail of earthquake activity extending south with displacement happening, but there's not a whole lot of tilt meters down here. But I have a feeling the displacement took place and is continuing down in this area over the past few months. Now we're elevated and inflated, recharged at the summit area, and the question is, are we going to see another displacement off here, off to the southwest rift zone, or potentially over here into the east rift zone or upper east rift zone? Or maybe we'll see an eruptive event there at the crater area up at the summit. So a little bit of interesting scenario possibilities here playing out. It's just we got to watch it. Either way, it's quite inflated. Again, at its highest level seen since 2018. All right, let's see what else we got. Anything going on down in New Zealand? I hear it's cold down there in New Zealand this time of year. Well, it's starting to go to their winter time, right? Southern hemisphere. Some more deep activity down underneath the North Island area, 3.0. And a little bit of movement down south along the plate boundary. Continue to watch that because this has been an area of deep earthquake movement here recently. And, of course, the Hikurangi subduction zone extends off the North Island and part of the South Island east coast out here and is very capable of producing large, damaging megaquakes. And it's, like any major subduction zone area that hasn't seen any major movement in a while, it's something to watch with this deeper activity triggering underneath this region into the subduction zone area itself. There's that one little earthquake way up here. Looks like it's just on the China border here. Not anything big going on. A little bit of movement, a little bit of movement throughout the Mediterranean. Let's see what else we got here across the area. Some deeper quakes, it looks like, triggering out here. Which one is that? Greece. 4.5, super deep earthquake here underneath the Sea of Crete. Overall, this area has been somewhat heightened here, right? We had this swarm out here near the Naples area. Yeah, I got corrected here on saying Nepal's area. I appreciate it. It just slipped out. Naples, Nepal. Yeah, I know the difference, but sometimes it just slips out when I'm caught up in the moment. But things have kind of calmed down here recently. It's been somewhat elevated in terms of earthquake movement around that volcano, the Vlorë volcano area. But now we're getting some deeper activity triggering out here. So I believe this is a lot of regional stress going on. Things could be getting ready to rock and roll out here. Let's see what we got here for data. I do like to do a little, historical search here on Sundays just to take a peek at what's been going on here throughout time and history in certain regions. And I just want to see what we got out here. We're just going to cover this Mediterranean area. We know Turkey obviously gets some big earthquakes. We've seen it. Not really too concerned about that area right now. The main thing is this region that's seen a lot of the deeper activity. Let's go search it out. See what the USGS has to state here. Last one is going to be a 6-pointer back in 2021 down here across the Sea of Crete. This is kind of where we're seeing that deeper activity. But I am pretty certain this area can see some larger quakes. Looks like a 7.7 back in 1956. That was a pretty big one there. Roughly within that same region. Let me go back here to the USGS map and take a look. So this deeper quake taking place off of the main plate boundary, just on the eastern side here of the Sea of Crete. I would put it roughly about in this area. I think I'd cut it off here in terms of that box level. You can kind of see the line. But it is awfully close there to where that 7.7 struck back in 1956. They've seen a 7.3 in 1947, much further to the west here. So things can get big, and this is just what the USGS keeps track of. You never know, things could have maybe be bigger out here. But when was the last 7-pointer? Yeah, it looks like 1983 for that 7-pointer. And that's a little bit further up along the plate boundary. So just kind of curious about this area because it is showing some deeper movement. It's obviously getting some stress out there. So that's probably pretty much the closest one there back in 1956 for that 7.7. But we'll continue to watch that area because it is showing some deeper movement quakes there. And it has been as well recently in the past few months. The Atlantic Ocean, though, pretty quiet. South America region, a handful of deeper quakes once again into the subduction zone. 3.1, the latest quake in the area. Iceland, not seeing anything showing up there, but let's just go double check, see what we have here for the latest information here. Got about 54 earthquakes. Got a little bit of cluttering going on here in this area of concern. Let's bring up the all magnitudes. Underneath the Grindavik area and just to the north, south of Hagafell. Obviously, we've been seeing some earthquake activity out here in the last 24 hours. Nothing of major interest yet, but things are compacted here. Things are inflated quite high. In fact, I think we're at close to our highest level since the eruption activity began back in the end of 2023. Let's see if we got any information put out here. 524. So this is a couple days old, but I'll show you guys this chart here. Not that big. It doesn't have to be that big. Here we are. This is 2 days old, right? So it's possible sometime next week when they put out the update, if we don't see an eruption by then, Monday, right? Tomorrow's Monday, so next week, I guess, yeah, this coming week, we could be at or maybe potentially above this star level. And that star level is basically what kicked off the eruption activity here in the end of last year, November to December, right? Some of these events just seen displacement of magma without an eruption, but we're up there. We're definitely up there in terms of inflation, the volume of magma that's been accumulated there in the Svartsengi reservoir. And a couple things could take place here, folks. We could see that activity break there and create a new magma flow at the craters area. That's where we've been seeing the most recent activity there. Or we could see it take place somewhere down south where the Grindavik area is. Really haven't seen any elevated earthquake activity anywhere else. But I've been watching this region here because it has been showing some elevated swarming. But when things really start to get going, when they really start to kick up here, we'll see hundreds of earthquakes take place in literally about half an hour or so. Then we'll know exactly where things are going to erupt at. But we'll continue to keep an eye on it. Hopefully it's away from this area, but, you know, there's always some concern here. Some of these earthquakes, that's 3.64. That one's fairly deep. 3.6. Majority of these are actually somewhat deep here. And you know, I don't think this is over. I just got to watch it. This could turn into something much bigger than these little eruption events here. All right. What else we got? All right, let's chat about weather. Goodness, man, these guys cannot catch a break. I'm telling you. These guys are just getting hammered and hammered and hammered with tornado activity. Filtered reports. Overall, the overall tornado report is 25 from yesterday. Now, that's a lot of tornadoes and a lot of big ones took place out here. This is the filtered reports. Numerous long-range, long-track tornadoes up here across northeastern Oklahoma. Seen a bunch here in Texas. I've seen damage everywhere. You know, if you're on social media a lot, on YouTube, doesn't matter what network you're on, there's tornado damage floating around everywhere, and it is definitely heartbreaking. A campground got hit up here. It's you know, it's a weekend. We got a 3-day weekend upon us here, and people out trying to enjoy, you know, time with their family, away from work, away from town, and you know, get hit by a tornado. It's definitely heartbreaking to say the least. So I'm hoping for their sake that this stuff goes away. This stuff meaning the weather. You know, not only did we have tornado activity, but some huge high winds out there as well. Big time hail. It's just a very bad day out here yesterday. And it's actually been the last, you know, few weeks or so that these guys have had to deal with this stuff. It's been quite the year. 2024 is definitely going to go in the record books here for tornado activity. Today's severe weather event, big, huge, broad area, much further east. These guys just dealt with some tornadoes here recently as well. Tornado threat is high again in this area. 10% hatched area. This is a region where, you know, it's similar to yesterday. You don't have to be within this hatched area to see large damaging tornadoes. This is just where the Storm Prediction Center thinks most of the ingredients are going to occur or initiate. But if you're literally within any of this 2% zone, 5%, 10%, you guys need to be weather aware today. So you got not only the huge tornado threat, you got wind gust damage and some large hail to deal with as well. I'm hopeful. Hopefully this doesn't verify, but you know, I'm sure people are out here camping and enjoying the weekend, 3-day weekend with their family out here as well. So you guys need to be weather aware and have some type of plan, have some type of evacuation plan. If you see a tornado warned storm headed towards you and, you know, you're knowledgeable on radar, right? I think think I need to cover weather more on occasion. That's my kind of my side, not a job, but my side hobby. I absolutely love tracking severe weather and experiencing it. I don't want to be in the tornado activity that's been taking place, but radar imagery. If you have a tornado warned storm headed at you and it's headed from the southwest up to your location in this general direction here, and you got 15 or 20 minutes and you're hooked up to a trailer, I would attempt to maybe hook up to it, and most likely you want to head north away from it, out of it. Because you never know. They always issue tornado warnings, right? Oh, nothing's going to happen. I seen that yesterday. A lot of people saying nothing's going to happen. And the whole event yesterday was kind of a dud in the early daytime, early afternoon hours. And then there was a whole bunch of untapped moisture that storms fired back up in later in the late afternoon, early evening time period. And things just got cooking there with the tornado activity. So, it's never wise to just ignore a tornado warning. And that's just what I would do. If I was sitting out here at a campground, tornado warning with this storm from Waverly headed off towards this area where I would be camping, say Sladen, I would get out of there. Just head north away from that storm. And the general direction of these storms look like they're heading off in this area. I mean, you could go south, but probably the best way to be is head north. Anyway, have a evacuation plan if you can. It's just the loss of life and the damage out here that I've seen is just, it's crazy. There was even a gas station out here that got hit, a Shell gas station, and people were taking shelter from the potential large hail and whatnot, but a tornado ended up hitting that gas station there. While a lot of people were taking shelter. So there's a lot of stuff that the National Weather Center is going to be reviewing over the next couple days as far as damage and the strength of these tornadoes and the exact path that the tornadoes took, and we'll cover that a little bit later. But it's just, it's just heartbreaking. So stay weather aware if you're out there today. Tomorrow for Monday, looks like a huge slight risk area. There's some tornado threat out there as well along the East Coast. That includes Richmond, Virginia, Virginia Beach, wind, and some large hail as well. But the main threat, it's a little bit less than what we're seeing here today. But either way, don't take it lightly. All right, I think I am out of here, folks. Going to enjoy this beautiful day. Yesterday was an odd day here in California. We had drizzle, cold. I think we only got up to about 70 degrees or so, and that's way below normal here for us in Northern California, where I live. And today, a little bit different. Things are warming up here outside of Chico. It's supposed to be about 80. Well, these are current temperatures. I got 75 here in my backyard right now, but we're supposed to be up in the upper 80s here. And then it's only going to cook from here on out as we head into next week or so, which is normal. We're supposed to be in the upper 80s, low 90s or so. So I'm going to go out and enjoy some of the warmer weather. And I hope everyone has a safe day, folks. Remember, stay weather aware out here across this area of the country. And we'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening, folks. Have a good one. Enjoy your weekend.